This is the Dell 14 Plus. Dell has changed their naming conventions this year. It's a version of the Inspiron 14 Plus. I've already reviewed that from last year. Now it's just called the Dell 14 Plus. It's a fantastic laptop. It's a very thin, very, very thin Ultrabook. Never shows up thin on camera, but it's extremely thin. Little Ultrabook laptop here. Gray design, which I like. You may find it boring, but it means that it's resistant to fingerprints and looks nice and clean. You do get some metal on it, metal lid, metal bottom, a little bit more plastic here on the keyboard deck, but it still feels very premium, especially because it's small. It is very robust. There's going to be absolutely no flex on this laptop here. Very nice, very light, obviously, as you can see, easy for me to manipulate. And also very important here is what it has for specs. This one here is equipped with the Intel Lunar Lake CPU, which is going to offer incredible battery life. You're also going to get really good performance out of it as well. So if you're looking for a laptop for someone who's like a student, for example, or a professional, needs to have crazy all-day battery life, like I'm talking 1 day battery life and also the next day style battery life, this is the laptop to get. Let's jump in. Okay, let's look at the spec options here. Dell 14 Plus. There's a few options here. Looks like there's an AMD model. I didn't see that before. That's cool. But today we're looking at the Intel model with the Lunar Lake because it's the battery king. A few different options here. 256V, 16 gigabytes of RAM. Wouldn't recommend it because of 16 gigabytes of RAM. Move over one here. This is the one that I'm reviewing today, the one that I bought, and I believe I paid that, which is a fantastic price. 258V, 8 cores, and that means that you also get access to 32 gigabytes of RAM. Nice fast memory there. Very good. And then there's also the 288V. I mean, whatever. I probably wouldn't go for that route because you are getting the same amount of RAM and the performance on the CPUs would be very, very similar. The display here, 14-inch WVA. Not super bright, 300 nits, but it's still going to be fine for indoors. 2.5K, so 1600p. So this is the one I'm looking at here. This is probably the sweet spot. Wouldn't recommend this one here because it's only 16 gigabytes of RAM. And there's a big price jump here to go to the 288V. You do get some nice ports. Thunderbolt 4 port is essential. You do get display and that over the Thunderbolt 4. Good if you're running a dock and that as well. So overall, I mean, pretty straightforward design here. Pretty straightforward choice. Just get the metal one here and go with that. Some people might say boring. I would say clean and resistant to fingerprints. So there's a look at the laptop. Very clean, simple, light silver look to it. Nothing abnormal. Tiny little label there. Look how clean that is. Isn't that nice? Unassuming. Very unassuming laptop. And I love it. I love it. My daily driver laptop is the same color. Very nice. Now, it is very thin. It's hard to show up on camera. It never shows up well on camera, but it is actually significantly thinner than I thought it would be. It is very thin. Right? Not much thicker than the actual USB-C port. I don't know why, but for some reason I just assumed it would be a little thicker, but it's very thin. The screen is, I guess, slightly thicker, but you can see that the screen is almost as thick as the laptop. So it may show up thick on camera, but it is very, very, very thin. It's just kind of the perspective type thing. Right? If I actually bring my hand over there, it's a tiny little thing. Micro SD card. Right? A tiny bit thicker than a micro SD card. Go like that there. It's a very thin laptop. Gotta always have the scale. And it feels very premium in the hand. It's metal, right? You have metal top, metal bottom, so you don't have any flex. And there's a lot of structure inside here. You'll see when we get to opening it. I've already done it. But inside there, and that reduces creak. There's no creak. You'd have to break it to make a creak. Speakers firing out there. Very nice. Intake there. I believe the intake is, yeah, intake is over here. Out that way. Very sleek and unassuming. Inside. Nice matte screen, so it's not going to be a reflective monster. There's a light shining right on it. It's not too bad. Nice clean internals as well. You get the rubberized style keycaps. I first kind of saw those on the Microsoft Surface type laptops, and now you're seeing it on things like these nice Dells and that. And I like it. It's a really nice. I used, what was the laptop? I can't remember now. Is it a Dell Inspiron last year? 155H laptop, I'm pretty sure it was. I used it for like 2 months. What's wrong with me? Crazy, losing my mind. I used it for like 2 months. It was a very similar laptop, looked very similar, basically the same, tiny bit thicker because it had a more higher wattage chip. But the keyboard was fantastic. I used it for a couple months. Loved it. It was really, really, really nice. I can't remember the laptop, but I'll put a link in the corner or something like that. Something's wrong with my brain. And it looks good. Very nice. Weight on it also is not super heavy, obviously. It's not the lightest thing in the world because it does have some metal in there, but overall, you know, you're going to get pretty good weight on it. So a little over 3 pounds, good for a relatively metal laptop with pretty good internals. The charger doesn't add much. It's just a tiny little charger, a little bit there. 65 watts, just a Dell charger. You could honestly, like, you can get a 65 little nugget if you want a secondary. I think Anker makes them. I think I have an Anker. Maybe we'll put a link down below. Just a kind of tiny little thing if you just want something super portable. Okay, so let's get inside here. It's actually using Phillips screws. That's interesting. Go like that. Yeah, just like that there. Nice thick metal bottom. Big sheet of aluminum there. Lots of structural stuff in here to give it nice firm in hand feel so you don't get too much creaking or anything like that. Very nice. Just a single intake there. And inside, nothing monumentally out of the ordinary inside here. We do have a decent sized battery, 64 watt hours, considering it is a fairly thin, well, not barely thin, very thin laptop. You can see just incredibly thin. That's about as good as you're going to get. They even had to run the wire through it apparently. I guess that's some weird style decision. But again, it's a Lunar Lake chip, so it will have very good battery life. These kind of rectangular speakers, they should sound decent. They're not those cheapo style that you know, the business style and the pro style and the consumer style laptops used to use. So those should sound pretty good. Looks like they have a little bit of a ring around it to keep it nice and flush so the sound won't leak out. Very good. Then we have a single NVMe for upgradability. It does come with a 2230 size, 2230. But I have no complaints because it has a bracket. So you just take that bracket out and then you can put in a full-size 2280. You love to see it. That's a very nice thing to see. I was a little bit worried about that. Then otherwise, we do also have upgradable Wi-Fi. Just take that out, pop it in, and away you go. That's all the upgradability you're going to get on this laptop. However, there is no way to upgrade the RAM on these laptops. It's not even that it's like, well, Dell decided to not put in, you know, soldered memory, or they decided to put in soldered memory rather than putting in socketed memory. Doesn't work that way. With these Intel Lunar Lake chips, the memory is actually on the chip. So you get the chip that you want for performance, but more specifically, you get the chip that you want for RAM. You can't get, you know, a 228V with 32 gigabytes of RAM. It does not exist. So you have to get this style here, with this that I got here with 32 gigabytes with that chip. Just the way that it's actually on the chip itself. Otherwise, cooling is fine, I guess. It's a fairly thin heat pipe in terms of thickness that way, but it does have fairly large area overall, so it should run pretty cool. It does have those curved style fans, which will reduce air turbulence, so I don't expect it to make like a whirring noise, like a woo, 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 or a shh style. I don't expect that at all because of the fan style. It's not, you know, behemoth cooling or anything like that, but it's a Lunar Lake. These chips are incredibly efficient, so it should be good. And, you know, just a little motherboard here. It doesn't have too much daughter boards over there with our wire running through it. Keep the weight down, keep the cost down, I suppose, too. These are relatively affordable despite being premium. Put the money in other places like, you know, aluminum bottom, aluminum top, that kind of stuff. And avoid putting money in places that you don't need to, essentially. So looks pretty good inside overall. It does have an upgradable 2280, so you will be able to upgrade your storage quite a bit. Otherwise, just Wi-Fi, but looking fine. The keyboard, we'll give it a quick type here. As I mentioned in the intro part, it's a very nice keyboard. It does have that rubberized texture similar to the Microsoft Surface type products, which is nice. My current laptop, wherever it is, has the same idea. Rubberized texture on the keycaps. It's quite nice. And the layout is standard. So you have your function keys embedded, and you can do function like so that right now, you know, it's volume up, volume down, brightness up, brightness down, and then you can do function those, or you can do function lock, which reverses them. And then, you know, now it will work as a function key. So that's really nice. Everything else is standard. Fingerprint reader up there, Copilot button, very standard. Again, I used this very similar laptop from Dell, the Inspiron, I guess it would have been, Inspiron Plus, I think it was called, for, I don't know, it was at least a month, maybe 2. And it was fantastic to type on. I use it quite a bit. It's fantastic. So yeah, 10 out of 10. Yep, it is what it is. It's a fantastic keyboard. It's excellent to type on. It's very snappy. The keycaps aren't super small, super large. They're relatively small, but there's a ton of travel. And it's not a glass trackpad or anything like that. I guess that's a negative, but it's a nice precision tracking, and the click is nice. Feels uniform across. Click. And nice tracking force. I'm not a big fan of huge giant trackpads. I'll take a glass trackpad if it's there, but overall it's quite nice. So inputting to the laptop is fantastic. Hey, that one doesn't have an alternative key. Isn't that neat? Intel Core Ultra 257V. That is a Lunar Lake processor. Fantastic. 8 cores, no threads, just 8 real cores, and they work very well. Very, very good. That CPU has the RAM on it. You get access to 32 gigabytes, very fast memory. So it'll be good for GPU type tasks, CPU type tasks, you'll see. SSD included is Kioxia EG6. I don't think I've ever tried that before. I've had only the Kioxia K8 or X8. I can't remember what it was. Recently. Intel Wi-Fi 7 BE201. That'll be nice and quick. And the beautiful, lovely Intel Arc 140V. I have a 140T in my primary laptop. I use it all the time. It's fantastic. This will be one tier below that, but barely one tier below that, like very, very close. It's a few percentage. So this will be one of the most powerful iGPUs in the market. Basically, it's the AMD 890M, then the right below that 140V, then right below that 140V, then there's a gap going down to things like the 780M from last generation. So you'll be able to do a lot with that there. Gaming, video editing. It's fantastic. It's a really, really good iGPU. Screen here is a very interesting screen. 1600p. That's nice. Nice resolution for a screen of this size. And 90 hertz refresh. So you don't get the 120 and the half refresh. Is interesting. It's 48 hertz below 60. I guess it's good for, it will be really good for battery life. That'll really help with battery life. And it's a matte screen, and it has very high reflection resistance, I guess I'll say. Now, Dell does do an annoying thing where they don't necessarily list the specific color space on a laptop. I do find that kind of annoying. I believe this is visually looking at it a sRGB color space. I'm just used to looking at it. If I could be wrong, I'm not like a wizard, but that looks like an sRGB color space rather than DCI-P3. I personally prefer DCI-P3 color space because content pops off the screen, specifically reds will become a little bit more vibrant. However, I have no problem with an sRGB color space. sRGB still looks very good for content consumption, content creation. It's probably a little bit more natural than a DCI-P3 color space, not quite oversaturated, and it's gonna be great for professional work, that kind of stuff. So it will be a good color space here. It does look nice and vibrant. Again, I use a DCI-P3 color space screen all the time, and I can see it's not quite there, but it's still very good. Good blacks, overall quite good here. Let's come back here. Not quite as saturated as a DCI-P3, but sometimes DCI-P3 color space screens can be oversaturated technically. This looks fantastic though. I'm happy typically when I have 100% sRGB or above, I'm fine. Once I get 100% sRGB, I'm not going to complain. I think it looks great. I don't want to see lower color space though. There are better screens out there, but this is quite nice. 100%. You get that really nice color space here, and then you also have really anti-reflective, but it's not the type of anti-reflective where it looks muted and like gross. Sometimes anti-reflective coatings can kind of mute the colors. We don't have that here, so it looks great. Honestly, it looks great. Okay, so for the audio test, I don't expect anything shocking or anything like that, but I do expect it to have good sound. Yeah, sound nice, honestly. They sound pretty like neutral, nothing overblown. They don't have the highest amount of low-end bass because they're not big thumpers. So that's going to be slightly, I guess, a little bit lower, but the low-end bass is still there. They sound nice. rich throughout the low all the way up to the high, and there's no tinniness or any rattle or anything like that, hollowness. So they're good, honestly, decent set of speakers. Honestly, on a laptop that's, this kind of lower cost offering, it's nice. That's kind of more than you would have got in the past, and kind of something that's nice to get on these more modern offerings from, companies like Dell that are actually stepping up the speaker game, even on the stuff that doesn't cost a fortune. Before we get into the performance, which I'm going to do here, I do want to show you some of the software. So one of them is this Dell Optimizer. This is new. I don't think I've seen this before, and I did actually use a Dell Precision Plus. Man, I'm just tired. It's late at night. It's not 5, but it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I used it for a few months, and it was fantastic. But I used it different. It had like a Dell Power software. Here it's integrated into this power and battery in this Dell Optimizer. So you can come in here, you can go power and battery. You have different modes here. Optimize is kind of like balanced, I guess I would say. Cool, a little bit cooler. Fan will go a little bit faster. It'll increase the fans, make them go a little bit faster, but you might get a little bit of like technical throttling. It'll just run a little bit cooler. Quiet will be the opposite of that. It'll keep the fans low, but it potentially will run hotter. And then ultra performance just goes. So most of the time you're going to leave it in optimized, but for the test, we'll put it in ultra, and then we'll go through the other ones and see what's up. Yeah, so we also have battery health stuff here. We have some display stuff here, bright, dark. I see no difference. Oh, for Dolby Vision enabled content. Yeah, so get some Dolby stuff going. Color profiles. Ooh. Movie. Comfort view. Oh, sports. Animation. Or just leave it off. It's an option though. Very cool. Thermal management. That's back to where we were. And that's that. You can also get support here. You do have your warranty stuff in here. Support if you have any problems with your laptop, you can go in there. So this is actually a very streamlined that there, but you do also have your support assist, another good software. It's not bloat. Like, I mean, back in the day, some of these laptops would just be completely full of bloat and you'd be like, what is all this stuff? Not an issue here. So you come in here, and this is where you can do some other stuff, scans. More specifically, you can do hardware updates. This is typically where you want to get your updates. You don't want to get your updates for your hardware from Windows. You can get Windows updates from Windows, but your hardware updates, such as BIOS, this type stuff, you want to get from the company, in this case, Dell. And there's other stuff in here as well. Very cool. So these are some good softwares here. So we'll actually get rid of that one. We'll leave the other one up, and we'll do some performance benchmarks here. But before that, we'll just run through here. We'll look at the noise and the thermals and wattages, see what the different modes give us. Then we'll kick into some benchmarks, and then we'll maybe do some creation and gaming type stuff. So this is the performance mode. Let's see what we get here. I do not expect it to run at a very high wattage because it doesn't need to. Probably under 40 static. The laptop is silent when it's not doing anything, but let's see how it is when it's doing something. Let it run for a minute. We're at 35. It'll bounce up and down. It should drop down. Yeah, the peak won't stay up at 30. It doesn't above 35. It doesn't need to. And it's not that it's throttling. You can see the temperatures are just here. That's just how it works. So no throttling. Fans relatively quiet. Not bad. Cinebench scores are not good on Lunar Lake because it's not like a fake BS chip. So you get these chips, and Intel was actually very, guilty of it, where they were like packing in E-cores and stuff like that. So you get these like 18 core processors, and there was only 6 performance cores and the rest were E-cores. And what happened was it looked really good for stuff like Cinebench because you had all these cores, but they didn't do anything outside of that most of the time. Like maybe in some stuff, like maybe some like video stuff, but if you got into stuff like gaming or other tasks that are like core dependent, large core dependent, they didn't do anything. That's not the thing that happens with Lunar Lake anymore. Lunar Lake is just 8 cores, just straight up, just 8 cores. There's no threads anymore, and there's no efficiency cores. It's just the cores are the cores. That's what they are. So you have one type, and it's typical. Yeah, you get 9 to 10,000 on Lunar Lake stuff, depending on the chip, but that's about standard there. So you don't get any throttling. That's good. And you may look at that and say like, well, my 14900K or 14900X gets 32,000 or 40,000. It is faster, obviously, but when it comes to doing things with your CPU, like, making some video edits and stuff like that, it won't make a difference. So just be aware that the synthetic benchmarks can be very underwhelming for a Lunar Lake chip, and it's kind of bullshit. Just be aware of that. So we'll go there. Let's go to optimize, see if it makes any difference whatsoever. Oh, it actually got a lot quieter. Watts are down too. Now, the cool thing about Lunar Lake is that it is very efficient. So even when you drop down the wattages down from, let's say, 30 down to like 15, you don't lose 50% performance, 60% performance, even though you've lost 60% watts. That's not how it works. Lunar Lake's very efficient. This is very quiet, by the way. My noise floor is about 33. It's also raining out, so maybe a little higher, but very good. No throttling, obviously. And go there. Quiet is the mode where it's just going to basically, the fans are not going to run, so let's see what that does. It should technically get hotter, I guess. So you're like playing with it, and the scores, they're not really changing much, even though we're messing around with these modes. Chopped off 60% of the watts, and the score went down by 10%. Quiet actually seems about the same, but the watts are a little bit lower. I don't know. Cool. That should make the fans go loud, I guess. Keep it nice and cool. Wattages are actually low, and the fans are high. So it's a bit of a weird mode. I guess if you live in a very hot climate or you have very high temperatures in your place right now, and you're like, I just want to cook my laptop, you can throw it on that. Fans will rip, wattages stay low, and your performance is still there. So I think most of the time you can throw it in optimizer performance. It will make a big difference. So very good. Let's check some more performance stuff. Okay, here we are doing some Cinebench runs. We're on that optimized mode. The hotspot and the temperature for the keyboard, only 36. My hand is going to be around 32, 33, yep. So you can't really feel it, especially because it's, the keys themselves aren't that hot. Just the metal underneath, but even that's not hot. There's a little bit of a hotspot on the screen where the exhaust is coming, but it's not touching the actual screen, it's just the bezel. The screen itself is not getting super hot. Maybe a couple degrees, but not terrible. But even so, we're only at about 42. It's not super hot or anything. To the touch, it's fine. That's fine. On the bottom. Yeah, so where your legs would potentially sit, cool and cool. The central vent area there, around 40. It's still not too bad. And the back just normal. So yeah, it's getting the heat out really well. I mean, it's a Lunar Lake. It's not using a ton of watts. The fans aren't actually going that loud. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear them on the camera too well, but yeah, nice and cool. And just looking at some of the benchmarks here now, so the Wi-Fi is fast. It's Wi-Fi 7. Unfortunately, I don't have Wi-Fi 7, so it's just going to basically max out my Wi-Fi 6. But if you have Wi-Fi 7, you'll get even better speeds. I do notice that it does mean that it's a lot more stable, though. I don't get drops. The included SSD is very fast, 2242. Very fast for a 2242. Again, you can swap it out for a 2280, put in something significantly larger if need be. And battery life. This is where things get actually very impressive with this laptop. The Lunar Lake is the most efficient chip you can really get on the market right now, outside of potentially getting Apple Silicon, which has its own negatives. So idling here in Windows, we do have it at full brightness and at 90 Hz refresh. I decided to just do the test here at the full refresh. We're burning about 4 watts. That's crazy good. That's going to give you, I mean, what are we looking at here? 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours, depending on what you're doing. I'm just kind of hanging out here doing some basic tasks in Windows. This is the type of thing that if you have like, a 6 to 8 hour workday, you take this to work, you use it all day, and then you forgot to charge it. You take it to work the next day, and it's like, oh man, I still got like 6 to 8 hours out of this thing. So very good. And then just to prove that point, 1080p 60 YouTube, fired up a video here, watching 5.5 watts. So even here, we're still looking at about 12 hours of YouTube playback at 90 hertz refresh and full brightness. I don't mess around with that, like putting it down to an unusable situation. So once again, Lunar Lake comes in as the king. Intel is talking about making these chips only a once off, so I mean, maybe get into it if you need to. I really hope Intel uses their brain and decides to make a revision to this for next year and ongoing, because the Lunar Lake is such a compelling chip in these laptops. Okay, here we are in Hogwarts Legacy. You can use XeSS or FSR. I'm just going to do FSR just so that people know they can compare to their own system. 1200p, balanced FSR. We are on low, but I mean, you can play with the settings. As you can see, I guess I should turn off VSync probably, right? So you can see. I don't think it's going to go much over 60 anyways, but VSync, frame rate. Oh, it is uncapped. Okay, we're just hitting 60, just straight up. Yeah, I mean, the 140V in this laptop is used in gaming handhelds, like the MSI Claw 2 or whatever. 140V is not as powerful as the 890M, the most powerful iGPU AMD has, the real iGPU, like a true iGPU that AMD has. But that's okay. It's basically really close to the 140T from Intel, which is the second best. So, and it's close. So this will perform, I'd say that it performs kind of right between AMD's best, the 890M, and AMD's kind of second best, the 780M from last generation. So if you want to do gaming, and you look at stuff like the ROG Ally, the Lenovo Legion Go, and those, you look at the performance in those games, the 780M, this will perform better. We're in Doom: The Dark Ages, which is a brutal game, obviously. 1200p, we're doing low, obviously. A little bit of scaling. It's actually, the scaling isn't actually jacked up too high. We have XeSS, which looks better than FSR too, so you can actually use more if you want. But yeah, you're going to get really good performance, as you can see here. Again, the 140V is in dedicated handhelds, gaming handhelds, like the MSI Claw, and I've used it extensively. Excellent, excellent performance here. Really, I mean, if you've looked at previous generation handhelds, like the ROG Ally, the Lenovo Legion Go, they were good. They ran well. They had the AMD 780M, which was a good iGPU. This will perform better than that for two reasons. One, we have more memory. So we have 32 gigabytes to work with. This means we have more VRAM. So just straight up, this will run better than the ROG Ally and the Legion Go, period. There's no debate about it. It just will. So this will be a little bit closer, more comparable to the ROG Ally X, which was more performant than the regular ROG Ally because of that memory. So we have more memory here. However, the 140T versus the 780M in the ROG Ally, Legion Go in that, is basically exactly the same performance or better. There'll be a few cases, a few games where it performs worse because AMD has better drivers than Intel, but on average the 140T is just a better iGPU, so it will outperform. And again, there'll be a few cases here and there where maybe the iGPU will be slightly better in AMD just because it's a different iGPU, different drivers, but overall, generally speaking, the Intel 140T is more performant and is a better iGPU, as you can see here. Plus, of course, then you also have the VRAM, more VRAM. But overall, I mean, we're under like a chaos situation. We're at 28, and it's like no frame gen, by the way. You could turn on frame gen and turn the settings even more with scaling, but it's fine. Right, we're around 30, sometimes higher, sometimes a tiny bit lower. Where's this guy? Yeah, so anyways, you're going to be able to play like, and well, right now, as of 2024, or 2025, you're going to be able to play any game from 2025, 2024, 2023, any of them. They'll all play just fine. You'll probably be able to play the vast majority of games that come out this year and even next year. There might start to be a point, in a year or so when the brand new, most demanding games, you're like, all right, it's starting to get a little bit behind. But again, that means that you can play, 99.9999% of PC games on this thing. Like, truly. You can play any game that's out right now. Any. So what do I think about it? Negatives, there really aren't any true negatives. Honestly, I mean, it doesn't have more storage room inside. Like, can't put 2280 times 2, I guess, and the RAM can't really be upgraded, but that's just the chip itself. So it's all positives for this one here. It's affordable. It has a nice metal design. Very premium feeling. Fantastic keyboard. Trackpad's good. I guess it would be nicer if it had a, some type of covering, like a glass or acrylic trackpad cover it is what it is. It's fine. Screen is 100% sRGB. It's going to be good for professional type work. I personally prefer a DCI-P3 color space, a little bit more saturated on the reds, but they sometimes can actually be too saturated depending. So it's good. High refresh, and it's also going to be nice fine resolution. Fantastic. Speakers are good. Not really a problem with them. Again, you want better speakers, you got to pay more, get a bigger laptop, something like that. Internals are good. You get decent cooling overall, no problems with throttling at all, just runs nice and cool. You get 2280 support and NVMe, upgradable Wi-Fi, battery's fine, I guess. And the CPU, I mean, you get an awesome CPU options. There's a 16 gigabyte, 32 gigabyte option. You want 32, absolutely. You get locked in here with the Intel Lunar Lake. The RAM is on the chip itself, so you have 32. It is what it is, and that's still going to be nice, fast, performant memory as well. And the CPU here is amazing. It's not going to be the benchmark king, but in real-world performance, it's fantastic. It works very, very well, and you're going to have no problems with the performance on this iGPU here for things like video editing or gaming. So overall, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, there is no negatives with the laptop. Honestly, it's just whether you like this design and you want to get a Lunar Lake chip. If you do, then this is probably the one to get right now. Non-glossy screen goes really far for me. The fact that you can get such a nice screen that's going to be non-glossy. So you can get good colors, nice refresh rate, good pixel density, and it's non-glossy, meaning it's good for professional work environments. So yeah, I mean, the Dell 14 Plus for the price that I paid, like 1,000 Canadian bucks, it is actually a no-brainer. It's a fantastic laptop at that price market, in that price bracket, in this market. There's really nothing that would compete at that price range. You could pay more and get something that's a little bit nicer, I suppose. Even that, not really. I mean, you're just going to end up paying more for like other things that you don't necessarily need. This is a no-nonsense, no bullshit laptop that gets the job done and does it well and looks good and performs well and everything. And honestly, I like Dell warranty support, and I like the Dell software. So I mean, really, it's just a complete package for a good price. So that's the Dell 14 Plus. Honestly, just buy it if it's in your price bracket. It's what you want. It's fantastic. I have no real qualms about it. It's a good laptop.